since everything to do with blockchain has some sort of value transfer involved with it, every time you change state, you have to move some Ethereum, then technically almost every application is by definition a bank, or every dApp is by definition kind of some sort of bank.
Welcome back to another episode of Ameer Approved. Today's special guest is Jesse Abramowitz. He's a blockchain developer at BlockX Labs, Polkadot Ambassador, experienced in multiple blockchains, including Ethereum, Aion, and more. He has experience building private proof of authority blockchain networks using JavaScript, React, NodeJs, backend and frontend experience. He is also a college professor at George Brown College, teaching blockchain fundamentals, smart contract security, DApps, and many more. Now, before we begin today's episode, a little bit of house cleaning notes. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave a review. Every review helps. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm checking iTunes and checking YouTube for the best reviews and the best comments, and I'm gifting people $20 in Bitcoin. So I'll be looking out for that. Without further ado, Jesse, welcome to Ameer Approved. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. You and I know each other for a while, and the reason why I have you on the show is I want to talk about the state of blockchain.
Oh, that's very ominous.
Yes.
Where do I even begin?
Exactly.
Where do you begin?
Well, let me ask you this. What have you been seeing lately?
Okay, yeah. So I actually did know the topic coming in, so I do have some previous ideas. But for sure, to like me, the state of blockchain space or the next step is interconnectivity between multiple blockchains. And I know we've been talking about that forever, but I'm building on that now. So again, that's at the forefront of my mind for sure. And like you can see things like that in like stuff like Kosmos and Polkadot. I think even Tron, like Control-C, Control-P, like Polkadot's white paper, because they have parachains now or something.
Well, they're the masters at Control-C.
Pardon?
Masters at Control-C.
Yeah.
Control-C, Control-V.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Control-V. Yeah.
I always have I have a thesis for China. They're really good at copying, hyperscaling.
I read that in 0 to 1.
Yeah, so
that was, yeah.
This is my thesis on China, and this can be applied to any systems like China. Let's say China becomes the go-to authority. Let's say somehow their dollar becomes the hedge, and now I'm hearing they want to put the renminbi on a blockchain or like a digital version of it. Pretty much it's all digital, like everything on, what's it called?
WeChat.
WeChat.
Yeah.
Pay your bills, facial recognition. It's like a dystopian future. The thing that people don't understand with United States primarily, because within the Constitution and freedom of speech, you have the ability for creativity. You have the right as a sovereign citizen to express your mind. This is why everybody copies the culture of the United States. You look at Hollywood, look at music, you look at Hollywood. They are the biggest exporter of ideas. All the tech ideas, startup ideas, music ideas, everybody takes from the United States. Now, let's say China does replace the United States. My question is, where does creativity come from? Where do they then copy people from? You don't have the right to speak your mind. You don't have the right for creativity.
Right. And I mean, I guess that gets to like the fundamental core concept of like what we were even talking about before this started was the resistance of censorship. Like if nobody can censor you, then you can push through any idea that you want. Kind of have that American style culture on a global scale.
Yes. And
like maybe with the state of how large the American government is getting, how heavy the tax burden is. We were just talking about how terrible California seems.
Oh my God.
How long until that, American spark or whatever you're calling it starts to like fade away because of all the top-down censorship and top-down censorship that's kind of happening.
But you're talking about the interconnectivity between blockchains. Why is that even important?
Right. So yeah, again, I think everybody, when they talk about blockchains, at least eventually talks about like transactions per second. And that's really important, but there's so many different types of scaling. In fact, I actually love when I talk to like other developers who've worked in other spaces. I was talking to Eric, who used to work at fira. He works at chainsafe now. And he was just like, when people say scaling, they always think transactions per second. He was like, well, I don't think anyone's ever like run something like Fira, and actually reading from the blockchain is very difficult too, and that has some sort of scaling problems as well as the blockchain grows. And then I heard a talk from like Lane Renning, who was like, people talk about TPS for scaling, but nobody talks about the size of the global state tree, which is growing rampantly in Ethereum and any other blockchain. So scaling doesn't just come down to transactions per second. And even if it does, you can scale it, vertically or horizontally blockchain, which means you can just have a better protocol that moves faster, which usually today means that you sacrifice things like decentralization and that censorship resistance. Or you can kind of scale horizontally when you have multiple different blockchains all talking to each other. And if you can all communicate and you can move through blockchains like you move through web pages, then you won't have the same problems of scalability that you have today. It won't really be necessary. Every time you kind of get to a point where things are slowing down, create a new blockchain and just have them connect and talk to each other a certain way.
But let's say we're having this conversation and the issue is not scalability, is not interconnectability or interoperability as they call it. What I'm getting to a point within the space, I've been in space for a while, is I'm getting disillusioned of what we're trying to solve. There's a lot of noise right now.
Yeah, and that's you're right, because interconnectivity doesn't really solve anything except for technical challenges, but solves almost no use case. It's kind of oh, cool, we're going to create this amazing airport, but if you don't have people flying on the planes, then why are you doing it? Or you don't have a reason to go to other countries and travel, and what's the point? So yeah, I guess another problem with it's interesting, are we waiting for those killer use cases that are coming out? And I don't think DeFi is one. I have my reservations about it.
I don't like even the word DeFi.
Well, I mean, it's cool. It's 2 syllables. It's nice to say.
I like to have OpenFi. What's decentralized?
That's a fair
The only one that kind of looks pretty decentralized is Uniswap.
Right.
The rest are there are key players that can either pause it, shut it down, or change the repo and manipulate it how they want it.
Okay, so to be fair though, I used to really agree with you on that one, but when it comes to upgradable smart contracts,
yes,
building them myself, I kind of don't agree with you at all anymore. It's just the amount of ego that you have to say to I'm going to create a program and then I'm just never going to update it.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think DeFi, decentralization of financial products, it's a bad branding. I like OpenFi. There should be somebody in charge of upgrading the contract, or if there's issues at hand, to fix it. I agree with that. My question is, what are we trying to fundamentally solve? I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have that answer anymore. I mean, when I got into the space, it's oh, cool, bank the unbanked, global money, but nothing that I think I've done since starting to build. I guess now with the interconnectivity, you kind of do have okay, if you want a global system of money, you need higher transactions per second. But that's not why people are building the interconnectivity stuff so much. It's for DApps and things like that, which you're right, coming into the space, I was bank the unbanked, global money. I don't think anything I've done has really helped towards that. I mean, I did help build a mixer and stuff, but
I think mixers are cool.
Yeah, they're cool, but the whole point of the mixer we were building was to use DApps. Yeah. It's so you don't fingerprint yourself when you're using DApps, which is great, but I'm not sure so much that anything I've done for my initial ideas coming in have actually been towards the goal of global money. So much.
Well, if we're looking at baskets, so if I'm looking at Bitcoin, people call it a store of value. I don't call it a store. I think that's a narrative. Great. For me, I look at it as a censorship resistant. Not a store of value when it fluctuates from 10% to 15%. So for me, it's censorship resistant. I can have something where I can hold it for a brief period of time to move it to somewhere else. So when we're talking blockchain, I view Bitcoin within Bitcoin. We have Ethereum, which is a majority of developers and people trying to build on that. As we mentioned, there's other players coming, Polkadot, Kosmos. They're all, within this side over here, Ethereum, Polkadot, Kosmos, they're kind of similarities. Bitcoin does this one singular purpose thing. And now you have the explosion of DeFi or OpenFi. I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around is people are saying, oh, this amazing, I'll give you an example, whether it's any of these companies where you can take your pre-existing crypto and take out a loan. It's cool. There's great companies like Ledin who are doing amazing stuff, specifically for Latin America, that have a great use case. But let's say I'm in Canada here, it's nothing new. If I already have collateral, like my house or like my car. I can take a loan out.
Fair. Yeah.
Because I already have collateral. Like, you're not giving me the loan based on some type of new credit system. You're giving me the loan for the fact that you can just take away my collateral if I don't pay back.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, but like, I guess the promise with this, at least for me, would be that like, if I had, let's say, a house in Canada, America, whatever, I don't have to go to the bank and get a loan from the bank for putting it up.
Sure.
I could literally put it up on the blockchain itself, and then, you know, barring some sort of outside oracles and some outside force, which you're going to have to remove the collateral from the person, but you can literally lend it out to somebody across the world with zero permissions. Again, that's kind of like my problem with DeFi is that I always think that, like, you know, I went on Compound, onboarded myself from fiat to DAI in a matter of seconds or minutes, whatever. There are some cool places in Canada. I think Paytree was doing it, which they're doing a great job. And then I went into Compound and I was lending out my money on Compound. And I like to think of it like, oh, I was lending out my money to somebody in Venezuela who really needed it to buy food or whatever. But realistically, what I am actually doing is I'm just lending it to some guy who's trying to get like 3 times, 6 times leverage.
Yeah, everyone's arbitraging off everybody else.
Yeah. And like when I was doing it, I'm like, awesome, I'm getting this percent and I'm helping people. But really, I'm just getting that percent, like 10% that I want, and in a model that doesn't seem super sustainable when I say it out loud. So yeah, it's sometimes very disillusioning to kind of like take away the ideals and be like, okay, but what is actually happening? Not like where we want to be. So yeah, it is a very disillusioning thing.
Do you have any kind of predictions or ideas where we're heading within the space?
I mean, again, I'm a developer, and I've just from the day to day, I end up not so much talking ideals with people a lot. I end up talking like technicals, right?
Sure.
And from that perspective, absolutely, like connected blockchains. Personally, working on universal tools that like connect all of them. Working on a universal wallet right now, so like, you know. The idea is that you should be able to move from blockchain to blockchain with the same tool set as easily as people move from like, you know, websites or whatever, right? But from like the idea of perspective is, I'm not sure what that actually gets us, except for more DApps that are like kind of only useful to like a handful of people and people who understand the space so much. Like even when I was talking about Compound and like onboarding through Paytree, which was so easy for me, I went to a friend who's not in crypto and I'm like, oh, you should do this. This would be a great thing. And I'm like, oh, you're getting DAI, which means you're going to need Ethereum. And then I just stopped talking. I'm like, yeah, I thought this was really easy. But like now that I say it out loud, it's not.
You mentioned the unbanked. Like there's a company here in Canada, Ledin.
Yeah.
And Mauricio is a founder, a co-founder, and they're working with people in Latin America, Mexico, and Venezuela. A lot of people talk about the unbanked. What people don't realize, like locally, they're not using crypto as a form of payment. It's the greenback. It's USD. They need cash in hand. And so this whole unbanked, I think it just uses a gimmick as a marketing gimmick, to be honest with you. And so for me, I get it. Like going back to my example, like, you know, let's say I have this car. The car has a blue book value. It's not really fluctuating 10, 20% per day. It's like, let's say it's $5,000. We know for a fact that's $5,000, maybe like $4,900 next year based on whatever blue book value I can put up. And yes, you're right. It's like I have to walk into a bank or there's a process.
Have an ID, be in a country that actually has banks that you can trust.
Yeah. There's a tedious process, but it's doable, right? And so I do give it credit for OpenFi that it can streamline the process. I still think we're super early because let's say, like, for example, with Maker or DAI or any of these places, like you got to do 3-to-1 collateral. And, you know, you hear stories of people getting liquidated.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I would never recommend this to anybody that wants a loan. It's just way too much. It's way too complicated.
I barely understand how to like make a loan because I never would probably make a loan anyways. But yeah, it's super, super complex even for me or you. And like think about trying to tell that to an average person.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like, oh, you need to do this. Oh, you also need Ether first to do all of this. And yeah, I usually just stop talking at that point when I'm talking to my friends. But yeah, promising though.
And so, like, you know, you're working with Polkadot, you've dabbled in Kosmos, obviously Ethereum. What are they trying to accomplish? Like, what's the difference right now with Polkadot compared to Ethereum?
Right. Yeah, actually, I have great metaphor. I love talking about this. So, like, if you look back at, like, Bitcoin was, let's say, doing X, right? But it was the only thing doing X. So people tried to use it for X, Y, and Z, right? Because it was, like, the first time something like this happened. So, you You have Namecoin, Peercoin, whatever, all those things. The whole story of why Ethereum came along. And Ethereum's like, hey, we're going to do Y, right? Because, you're doing X, Y, and Z. We can do Y really well. And people start to use Ethereum for Y, but then also Y and Z. And now Polkadot's coming along as like, oh, okay, everybody's loading on Ethereum with like Z, and it's kind of not helping Ethereum so much. It's not, you're having these scalability issues, you're having a bunch of issues. So Polkadot's like, we can grab Z, right? And so the idea was like, what that actually means is Ethereum's great if you want like some sort of like, not finality, but like non-upgradability or very difficult upgradability. You want things to stay like a full smart contract platform. That's awesome. But if you want to build these like full like living DApps that move fast, that you have like this really large control about how the blockchain acts and functions, then that's when you want to start to think about moving to Polkadot or Kosmos, where you create your own chain and you can affect things that happen outside the state tree, outside like what you can touch with the DApp. As well, you can like speed up things, slow down things. You can do like a whole host of different design patterns that are going to start popping up around this. Like you can have transactions where nonces don't increase. You can write it like that. I don't know why you would do that. You can have blockchains that don't have accounts on them. I still don't know why you would do that, but like I've been told that there might be use cases for that eventually.
I've heard about that, ledgerless blockchains.
Yeah. I think it's so cool.
I think Aragon's one of them. I haven't looked into it.
I have no clue, but like when I was talking to people, they're like, oh, that would be really interesting for logging. I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe. I don't know. But like, I'm starting, like, you'll start to see in like a few years, I mean, Polkadot and Kosmos aren't even live yet, but people creating blockchains that kind of go against what we think blockchains might actually have been, or like what actually are, like the whole ledgerless blockchains and stuff like that. And that's a really cool future, at least from a technical perspective. Getting back to your original point is, what does that solve?
But let's say it's solving something, whatever X. I'm trying to figure out how do we create a business model around that, because it can't be a token.
Yeah. So I've talked to like a lot of people, and like I don't think we're there yet. But imagine if you can have like DeFi, right? So okay, while we were talking before this, we were talking about how Internet 2.0, selling ads, stealing your data. It actually made sense for a business model. But now what's starting to make sense for a business model is the opportunity cost of money.
Yes.
So if you can like lock up money and then somehow put it onto some sort of DeFi platform, then you can actually have business cases where people are just staking money. They're not losing or paying anything, but they're losing the opportunity cost they get from that money.
That's like what Polkadot is doing.
Is it? Yeah. There's already people doing that. Then that's me. In fact, you can look at DeFi or OpenFi if you're trying to rename that as not just a DApp itself or application itself, but almost the fundamental like monetization infrastructure of blockchains themselves, which would be a really cool like future. Like I would be okay, cool. I'm not going to make my percent on this, but I'm going to be able to get my ENS name by staking this money here. Or
that's to say the percentages stay where they're at.
That is to say that
the alpha won't.
Yeah.
And just when you have more players and more saturation, you lose alpha. It's simple as that.
And then you're also relying on, again, your whole company's relying on a third party for their funds and the risk involved with that.
Because like, let's say like, okay, we'll use the example of Pull Together. And I didn't come up with it. Who wrote this? I think Ryan was talking about this. What's his last name?
Zur?
No. He's like on Twitter nonstop. Ryan something. Let me pull it up.
There.
Real time. We want to do justice over here and get his real name, Shadow. I want to give credit where credit is due.
Well, if you just say Ryan, then like you can
Ryan Sean Adams.
Here, if you just didn't give his last name.
You see him, right?
I think so.
Super Ethereum guy. He tweeted an interesting idea, taking the idea of Pull Together. So let's say you and I have a software company and the software is $20 a month. Instead of me paying you $20 a month, my lockage of my DAI or whatever crypto, the interest from that they can use.
Yeah.
So I'm technically getting the software for free because of my opportunity cost of me deploying this somewhere else. I'm not getting that. Now the question, are you really a software company or are you a bank?
That's a good point. I mean, like
at that point, you're a bank because you're deploying that money. You're not just saying, oh, here, I'm going to give it, or I'm just going to sit it here. No, like right now, DAI, let's say if it's like 8%, that's not going to last. It's probably going to get to like 2-3%, some stability, right? Maybe back to like banking rates that used to be 2%. Then pretty much it's like a zero-sum game. It's winner take all, right? It's like the more you have, the more kind of interest in deployment. So at that point, you're pretty much kind of like a bank/hedge fund, where your software is just a lead generation tool on the front end.
Well, yeah, if you think about like a lot of like what blockchains are, like every time like I start to explain things like MakerDAO, it's like there's like you're describing a bank to me. Like this is what a bank does. Like if you can tap into decentralized networks, and since everything to do with blockchain has some sort of value transfer involved with it, every time you change state, you have to move some Ethereum. Then technically, almost every application is by definition a bank, or every DApp is by definition kind of some sort of bank. If you're really tapping into these power and decentralized networks of it, so maybe that's our somewhat answer of like what are we creating? We're creating like decentralized banks for everybody, or everybody can be their decentralized bank. You can literally create your software, which it does something, but in the background, it's really a bank, and that's how you actually create your business model.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. I'm actually more excited now than I was when I came on.
That's one interesting thing. You know, another interesting thing too is I know a lot of Bitcoiners shit on tokens. And there's reasons why to. For the most part, we're in the early stage. I think a lot of these tokens are useless.
Oh, absolutely.
Like completely useless. Now, I'm also a firm believer where I think we will see in the future a type of new Facebook. We don't have to call it decentralized, but it's going to be more or less that everybody kind of wins on the upside of it. And so it can be a combination of two things within this new type of blockchain, called a social media platform, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, whatever, right?
Right.
One, I know we're super early on this. Blockstack was one of the first ones, I think. Was it like Reg A or Reg D? They did a securitized token. They registered with the SEC, etc. We're super early. There's no, you can't really get liquidity for it. There's not too many market makers for it. So it takes time to mature, to build out the ecosystem, both the buy and sell pressures. Let's say we're at that point, right? There's liquidity, and there's exchanges, it's regulated. You and I, let's say this new social media platform comes around, they're doing kind of like an STO, and they're raising money, maybe on like a Series B, Series C, not originally. They have to get momentum. I want to be part of it because I'm fucking using it, right? So I give money. We, as the initial users, we have upside now with this. So I think something like this will eventually happen. We can have then like whether it's DAI or Ether, or it should be open-ended. You can use any crypto within this social media platform. But you and I have a token now that represents ownership, that represents shares. Depending on how much I buy, I can represent my voting rights in it as well, depending on how they kind of label the different the token within it.
So it's kind of like a method of like turning regular users or like into super users. Into owners. Yeah, even super into something that maybe we don't actually see.
The thing with before is like it was all about deal flow and accessibility. Like if you weren't part of the Silicon Valley elites, you wouldn't have access to anything. Right? So imagine you and I create this system and we have to go through the proper channels. It's going to be regulated. But like... And
by this definition, we're on our Series B already. So it's not like we don't even have that Silicon Valley.
Yeah. I don't recommend this isn't a system where you just raise capital from day one. Yeah. Like you want to still get private investors in and build out your model, get the scale. And then once you want to really hyperscale, then you kind of...
And you already have a working app in your hands that has users too. So like... Yeah.
Stuff like that, I think we're really fucking early though. But I see that happening. But then again, this is like a permissioned, complete, sanctioned, secured, regulated type of platform.
So it's like kind of like the MakerDAO model trickling down into like everyday life where people are actually voting on what they think their interest rate should be, and people are actually trying to take a stake in the company itself because they themselves are kind of technically owners with the MakerDAO token.
Yeah, like I know at one point in the blockchain space there was a hype for curation, bonding curves.
Right.
I'm not in the camp that I believe everybody has a right to vote.
But all right, maybe like everybody should have a right to vote, but maybe not everybody should vote, or they should take it
seriously. There has to be some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Whether you are, when I mean by skin in the game, there has to be
risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've actually like talked about that idea, especially when I was learning about Create 2 for the first time. It's like you can create code and then it can like fully autonomously interact. But like if you vote for the wrong value, you actually get those tokens burned. And the people who vote for the right one actually get like a portion of the tokens from the burned or like the losers. So yeah, there is a lot of like value to that. The only issue is when I brought that all up is the amount of percent of people that actually vote in the Ethereum space already is very, very low. And people aren't like people aren't like trying to like, oh, how can we make that lower, make it more difficult for people to vote? They're trying to bang the door open so that you get like 100% of people, or like a large percent of people like voting.
Let's say I'm a regular user, and I'm even regular, like a dabbler within Ethereum. Why do I even care to vote?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And that's probably one of like the most like fearful I am for Polkadot.
Like I've never voted in Ethereum. I have nothing to gain.
Yeah, I mean, I voted for a few DAO stuff, but it was mainly because there were small DAOs.
Yeah,
you know?
That's not like for me. I have nothing to gain. I have nothing to lose. I'm like, what's the purpose of me voting? I have zero skin in the game here.
Well, I mean, what they say was when they talk about the tokens is that you're voting on things that govern the token that you're holding.
I'm not a developer. I'm not an engineer. The fuck do I know what's going on?
That's a fair point. I mean, and again, yeah, a lot of people talk about, getting more people to vote in these decentralized networks, but, you also make a very fair point, which I do consider is like, should everybody be voting? Like, is that like our biggest goal to get everybody to vote, or people who vote are the people who really, really care and really, really sit down, research, and, should have a say?
Well, for the most part, it's always a select few to control everybody. So you bring up Maker, there are people out there who've bought the Maker token that have an incentive to buy the token and to put in the votes based on their incentive models. It's all about incentive models. You can see why people behave based on incentive, feedback mechanisms. Maker's an interesting stuff. See what happens with DAI. I have no idea. Now they're doing multi-collateral.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to that. But it's still... I think DAI, I'm more in the camp, I don't know how they're building out the multi-collateral. I think DAI is an interesting product, really interesting. I think if it can hold its peg, there's a lot of use case for it. But I'll never, ever, ever see it in, I don't know, maybe I'm proven wrong, but at least as of today, I don't see it being used as money.
That's fair. I mean, like, I can't complain. I haven't used it for money. I think I bought a drink at a bar once with it. But, like, yeah, other than that, I don't. You're right. Yeah, fair.
But it could be used as the means of a stability when it comes to OpenFi. So
I was actually about to say that. I just recently made the ETH 101 videos for Blockgeeks for you, and I was like, hey, pay me in DAI, man. I'm not getting you to pay me in DAI because I want this money to spend on things. I'm not going to.
Now
I was going to put it into
Now I have
compound.
to go to an exchange with my company, re-register.
Like, you're not holding some DAI because you're like, do global business.
Yeah.
I guarantee you're paying people in crypto.
We pay a lot of our freelancers, but it's all in the books. We invoice, we tax people.
Yeah, I know. I saw you come with invoice. I'm like, shit, now I'm going to have to tax it. I always pay my taxes though. If anyone's
we're a Canadian corporation.
I know. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I thought I was just going to now have to give all this, whatever. But I was totally going to pay my taxes no matter what happened, if anybody's watching. But yeah, no, I didn't say like pay me because I want to spend this money. I was like, pay me because I'm going to go put it into compound and make interest and do some sort of DeFi stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what else am I going to do with the money? I'm like 28. I don't have a family, and my rent's not that expensive.
Get into real estate.
Yeah, eventually. Well, I'm doing that on the software side. I'm building like a product. I have access to the Treb. My friend's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I have access to like the Treb database. So we're like building this whole like front end, connecting users to the houses. You see all of them, but they're all terrible. We're like, oh, we can build one better. So let's do it.
Yeah, you got to talk to my boy. He ran the company. They're not around anymore, but he ran Redpin.
Oh, yeah. They're not around it, but everybody talks about Redpin and how great it was, and they're not around anymore. And I'm like, oh, man.
You should talk to them before you start
business to get into.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not doing the business side. I just wanted to build like some tech out. So
yeah.
So, but yeah, I should probably talk to that person. Yeah.
Have you been paying attention, dabbling within the Bitcoin space at all?
Within the Bitcoin space, no, I actually don't own that much Bitcoin. Here's the funny thing. I'm building a Bitcoin wallet right now, but I don't actually own too much Bitcoin. I don't own a lot of stuff until like I start to like work on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then I actually like understand it because I had no idea how Bitcoin wallets worked until I like started to build one.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I definitely don't want to own any Bitcoin because I don't even like, it is so hard to manage these funds. But just the way that like, I actually did a Blockgeeks video on it.
Yeah.
The way that Bitcoin works to actually build a wallet for is really like difficult and complex. Like, every account you need to loop through at least like 20 to 40 different accounts because each one ends up in a different wallet, like every time.
Mm-hmm.
Just even things like getting balance, it's just so complex. And I I'm shocked that more people don't lose Bitcoin funds. Maybe they do, and I just don't hear about it. But like,
But how would they lose them?
because they take their funds from one account to another, and they don't have like the proper pathways like it's specified, so they can't actually find the accounts that they have funds in.
Okay.
Stuff like that. You know, to be fair, that kind of happened a little bit on Ethereum when I was using my ledger, and I went and I grabbed my second derivation path account from my ledger, and I went to like my Ether wallet. I couldn't find it. I had to specify my own specific derivation path, like by looking up like what ledger documentation. And it took me a while, and I was super nervous, even though like I build wallets, and it was just that they were just accidentally appending like one extra one.
So what do you think is the biggest problem in the wallet space right now? Since you're building one.
So, okay, to be fair, so we're building like a wallet that doesn't exist yet. It's like a universal MetaMask.
It's going to be an app though too, right?
It's a Chrome extension.
Oh, Chrome extension. I got you, yeah.
So, and I guess we're kind of like going with the idea of, you know, blockchains that connect to each other. The whole idea is that you need tools that connect to each other too. I mean, whenever people say like, oh, what are you going to build with it? I'm like, look, I don't think we're even in the point where you can comprehend DApps. Like, I can't give you an example of a DApps that's created because these tools don't exist.
Yeah.
So like to try to yet understand what DApps will be being built with this, it needs like a new way of thinking. But I guess the best one would be like multi-collateral DAI. It'd be great for people to have one like Chrome extension that handles moving like Bitcoin to Ethereum and Ethereum to wherever.
But there's a bunch of wallets still like that has it all right now.
Yeah, but do any of them like inject into the page and allow you to sign messages straight from the page?
I don't know about on the Chrome, but on the actual like there's a Google store or something. Yeah, there's a bunch of
that
wallets.
allow you to mess around with DApps?
Oh, the actual DApps itself? No, just the currencies.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's Jacks and all those ones.
Yeah.
But none of them actually like work like MetaMask where you click a button on a page and then MetaMask.
I got you. Yeah. So this is interfacing with actual DApps.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. That's what I like to say it as extending the functionality of the browser. Really, all you do is you just like put in...
Question is, what DApps are people using right now?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, maybe they need the universality. So there are like, I guess...
No, seriously.
Seriously, like lists? Okay, fine. ENS is like a big one, but again, as awesome as ENS
that's
is...
for such a fringe fucking community.
It is, and it's a little bit more like an infrastructure app too. So it's like, it's not even so much a use case. It's like, okay, DNS is not like I go and I like spend time on it like Facebook. It's like Facebook needs it. So it's more like an infrastructure thing.
Yeah.
So you also, I guess, CryptoKitties, but I guess that's cool. All of the OpenFi, ones like Maker, Compound, whatever. And then like after that,
Maybe Uniswap.
Uniswap, yeah. I mean, that kind of goes under OpenFi, I guess. After that, like, it's fair. There aren't many being used.
Well, CryptoKitties they built their own blockchain right now.
Oh, yeah. Did they?
Yeah, they announced it. Well, they announced it before, but they did a presentation. It's the event that just passed. DEF CON.
Nice. Yeah, I must have missed that one. But yeah, like a lot of things going on in this space. But you're right. Like, I guess, to be fair, the best use cases that we won't see that will drive a lot of adoption is like supply chain. And I talk to people who've been in the supply chain space who like a lot of them don't understand blockchain so much, but they're like really excited about it, and that gets me excited too. But it's not going to be stuff like it's not going to answer your question. Like I'll get a lot of usage, I'll drive adoption, I'll drive it forward, but it'll also be like very like niche groups.
What I hope that happens, I'll tell you a problem right now, and then I'll go into what I hope that happens. And it has to go with lending. One, the systems that we have today with credit rating is a sham. You have these archaic, idiotic companies like Equifax that they should be eliminated. Like the fact that they have multiple breaches of our data, of our SIN numbers out there is obscene.
And they collected that data without our permission too.
Exactly. Obscene. I fucking hate Equifax. If you guys are listening to this, you guys are a horrible company. Absolutely fucking horrible. Like, zero respect for your clients. Zero. Absolutely fucking zero. And it's difficult. It's difficult for people to get regular loans. Now, when we look at, and the reason why it's difficult is you have this old archaic system that has these metrics based on if you are a trustworthy individual to get a loan. Whether it's like what employment you have, the history you have. It's a very archaic system and highly corrupt too. Now, when you look at social media, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, etc., this is your naturalistic behavior. And so where I see some application of blockchain, and this is where kind of OpenFi is kind of heading, is like, and this is where you can help people globally. You create a global ecosystem. And identity is the number one problem for that.
I was waiting until we actually got to identity. I thought like 3 times and I kept forgetting to bring it up. But it's such a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Like there has to be identity and key management. Like this shouldn't even be a question. And I know people are working on it, but we must have proper identity and proper key management. It can't be like,
do you think those two things are like the same? Do you think wallets will end up being the identity solutions? That's kind of what I'm seeing. I think that's kind of what we're doing.
Maybe. Like key store management has to be something. Can't be like if I lose my seed phrase, I'm fucked.
Oh yeah, social recovery of some sort has
something has to exist, and identity between different chains have to exist. Has to. And so what I would love to see in the future, where it's like, I want to take a loan, whether it's DAI, whether it's Bitcoin, some type of loan, I want it. And I think the company was Bloom. They're trying to work on this. I don't know what they're doing today. I would like to see a system where based on my natural behaviors online, like I'll raise my hand and be like, okay, Ameer's wallet is this. So I raise my hand. You don't need to know I'm Ameer right away. Just I'm a user. This is my identity. And my behavior is X. You see that I'm buying stuff, I'm taking out a loan here, I'm repaying it back. So we have this big elongated time frame of my naturalistic behavior. Based on my naturalistic behavior, this gives me a natural, we wouldn't call it credit score, but like type of score. And I know some people listening to this might be Black Mirror.
Yeah, so I was actually literally, don't get me wrong, it's such a almost a double-edged sword, or like
this cannot be run by a government agent. It's an independent open source project. This is how I like to have it kind of executed.
To be fair, like I totally agree, but so to me, like that is a future I want to live in. But at the same time, it's also a future I don't want to live in. Like, I actually heard this a lot from Edward Snowden, who talked at the Web3 Summit, who was talking about this. It's, the whole ideal, like the great thing about money is when you go into a store or like cash, you're like the $5 for a jug of water, you're just $5. That's it. It's like when you give $5, you're not, who you talked to yesterday,
This is why cashless society scares me.
Yeah, I know. And what you're describing is one, awesome and super like effective, but then also two, really scary, right? I mean, there's like no two ways about it. The second that you create like this history of yourself, you also create a history of yourself that can be used for good and evil. I guess to me, like the big thing, and identity is such like a low-hanging fruit and it needs to happen, but it needs to be like, you have your identity accounts and then you have your anonymous accounts.
I think it's going to come to a point where all money will be digital and they will track all our money. But then you're going to have privacy type of tech. Yeah. Whether it's like the Zcashes or the Moneros, or if Bitcoin ever implements what's it called?
Hey, the mixer that I'm working on. Yeah.
But it has to be streamlined. It can't be complicated.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing.
Oh, yeah. It's, to be fair, like, it's not super complicated to use, but it's still definitely like in infrastructural pieces that like make it super terrible to use. So like, I think I did the math. It was like $3 to make a transaction.
But that's a cost you pay.
That's fair. That's
for now.
For now. Hopefully that gets better. The proof generation took like 30 seconds in browser to make.
Is this the mixer where they took, is it like Zcash or was it like ring signature? Like what?
Yeah, it was ZK Snarks.
Okay.
Speaking of ZK Snarks, now that I have an open microphone, I always like to like tell people that ZK Snarks are, to me at least, maybe I misunderstood it when I was listening to it, or maybe people misunderstand it. But really important to separate the ZK from the snark part. Like the zero knowledge is literally just a tacking on of like of words to like the actual snark, which is can standalone thing. And the whole idea is there is zero knowledge. Sure, not everything needs to be zero knowledge in it. Like it's pretty much as you go through a circuit, if you multiply two things together, like x times y, x times y equals xy, right? So if you do math on the same number that's being multiplied together, it's fine. Being factored together, it's fine. But you can't tell x and y. So as long as you pre-factored numbers going in, then you can make it zero knowledge. The whole idea of a snark is that you have these very complex proofs that can be generated on the client side, and these very lighter like verifications that can be generated, where you need to be generated like on the blockchain, that gets replicated thousands of times over. But the actual heavy computation is generated client side and like once. And that's the whole point of like.
So how would I use this mixer when it's done?
Technically, you can use it now. wouldn't recommend. It's only on Rinkeby, but pretty much you go to the mixer, you put in like the address of who you want to send it to. It creates this proof, puts it on the blockchain in a Merkle tree in a smart contract, and you send like your money with it, like 1 ether. And then you get like this blob of like text, right? That's your that has like specific information for you to generate that proof. And then when you go back, you go to withdraw, you click in you click that in, you get somebody else to, or you get a wallet with some funds to like actually withdraw it, so that there's no connection between those two wallets.
Gotcha.
It generates a proof in your browser, and then Metamass will pop up, and you like send it off, and then the money disappears.
And these are all shielded addresses, or?
No, it's Ethereum. There's no such thing as shielded addresses. What it happens to be, so it's not perfect anonymity. What it happens to be is you have this like one contract that everybody's using and has liquidity. Again, without liquidity, it's not a thing.
Yeah, so it goes into the noise.
Yeah, so pretty much instead of having like a one-to-one relationship, like I sent this to this, it's like, let's say 100 inputs to 100 outputs. Yeah. And there's no real way to connect the two. Like there's things like you can, if people start sending like 1.173 ether, then it's pretty obvious 1.173 comes out on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, if you send it and then like take it out right away, it's kind of pretty obvious that was you. So you can increase your anonymity set by like waiting extra time. We force everybody to use 1 ether who uses it. So like, there are drawbacks. There's our like large in-usability features of it. The fact that you're going to adapt to have to do this.
Yeah.
You're going to do one.
Well, there's apps or there's apps in the Bitcoin space for doing this as well, just for Bitcoin.
But are they doing it like in a decentralized way, or are they like, give me your Bitcoin and I'll give you other Bitcoin from a different
I think
account?
they are. Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's like Samurai Wallet is one.
But that's really cool. To be fair, I have no idea how they're doing it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, definitely worthwhile to look into.
My thing I was interested with Ethereum is like, for example, you see Consensus bought was it Fira?
Yeah. I had always assumed that they were paying for Infura. Like that's how we have it.
I think it was they own a bunch of shares or they invested in it and now they fully took it over. Whatever.
Fair.
Yeah. I wasn't really paying attention. But Eric Wall, I believe is his name. He has a great Twitter thread. If you guys Google it, he shows you step by step how long it took him to sync a node. Like 23 days or something like that.
yeah, that sounds about right.
And this was a full node. It wasn't even an archival node. And so it's like this whole idea of like decentralization, like what does it really mean? Like how many people have a full archival node?
Yeah, no, I would say almost none. And I think we're going like forward to like having light clients and like clients like in browser or on wallets or whatever. Like, I mean, that's still a pretty good future. That's kind of more decentralized, but you're right. There are getting to be less and less people that could run a node for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some tech that I'm actually interested in, and I don't know who's working on this. I know there's one form of tech. I think the app's called Wildfire, where like, for example, in countries that have internet kill switches, Hong Kong has it, Turkey has it, Iran has it. So it's like, fuck your blockchain. No internet.
Yeah. Good luck getting stuff out of there.
But like that one app, Wildfire, does it by proxy on Bluetooth, I believe. So since if you live in like Hong Kong, high proximity of population, so if you guys are out and about, you can still use messaging.
Oh, yeah. I think chainsafe was working on something similar to that too, called Ultra Lightbeam or something that like pretty much can hop messages or
so
transactions.
The mesh networks
Bluetooth.
are cool stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah, you need to get like enough mesh to like hop yourself out of the country though.
I don't know about
there's got to be a certain point where the Bluetooth just drops off and you're like, oh,
satellite stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, that's over in like my head. So,
stuff like that's interesting.
That's really cool. I mean, like I guess like every time you talk about blockchain or whatever, it still relies on centralized ISVs, and then it's just like cool. So how do we get rid of them? It's like mesh networks, but how do you hop a mesh network over the ocean? And then, like, let's say you do get satellite internet. Let's say Elon Musk puts up all his Bluetooth things up top there. It's like, how many companies do you think can actually do that in the first little while? So you're going to have at least 10 years of pretty
You ever
centralized.
seen that company that sent the Bitcoin transaction through ham radio?
I did not, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's really cool. Good. Transactions are, like, not that big, and don't need to be encrypted because realistically, like, you can like just send it out there. Like you're broadcasting this on like the whole thing and it's a signed message by you already. So as long as you can like broadcast it out somehow, like anybody can hear it because anybody's going to hear it eventually anyways because it's going to the blockchain. So, I mean, just throw pass at a wall, I guess, at that point.
Now, going back to the DApps, you mentioned some, I know gaming's up and coming in the space as well. There's interesting ideas of how to monetize the in-game purchases. You own this type of artifact within the game. I think gaming is a natural progression for this tech. I'm still not 100%, I want to say convinced, but I don't see a clear line exactly how this is going to play out, especially if there's a token involved in this video game. Besides the video games and besides OpenFi, do you see any other like small niches of ecosystem verticals arising within the blockchain space?
The supply chain would be my first one. Like just anything that like is a value transfer is like just such low hanging fruit, and supply chain is kind of like has blockchain built into it. It's just so good at like logging that type of information that comes through, and like just every time that you shake hands with somebody, like from, I pass you these goods, it's technically a transaction of sorts. It doesn't involve money, but it is a transaction. And that's really what blockchain is good in there for. And then if you ever have situations of trust arising from that, it's like, cool, then make it a blockchain that none of us control, or make it a database that none of us control, right? And to me, that seems like it's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be sexy. You're not going to want to talk about it on your podcast. I think I'll tell you that. But I think it's like has some serious potential to like, maybe not be the killer app, but like something that drives blockchain forward another 5 years.
We haven't hit the killer app stage yet.
Okay, so I don't really always understand that argument so much. I think killer apps are like really easy to look back on and be like 20 years later after the technology is so like intertwined. But like, this is like my least favorite thing about like with Bitcoin is like the way it's named. It's like you have the Bitcoin network and Bitcoin, and everyone just calls it Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But the Bitcoin network is a network of computers, and the application that sits on it is Bitcoin. So these currencies themselves, are they not the killer app already? Because they are driving those people to use those networks.
I think the killer app is actually the mythology around everything.
The mythology around
the narratives, yeah.
I love reading books on this stuff. So like, yeah, I'm definitely feeding into that for sure. Like I absolutely love reading that.
Because regardless of where you are within this space, whether you are a developer or whether you are a builder or an investor or curious bee or evangelist, I think everybody admits, or one has to admit, that the brain drain of this ecosystem is amazing. Developers are loving it for the most part. You have interesting builders who are trying to build stuff. The amount of different disciplines are coming within the space is amazing. Now, where we go from there, I don't know. I think Pandora's box has been opened since the invention of Bitcoin. It's hard to predict. But I'm like, right before this podcast, like I said, I'm getting, besides, like, as I mentioned, Bitcoin to me, even though people say it's a store of value, you can't say something's a store of value when it's fluctuating. I think we will eventually get to a point where Bitcoin is stable to a certain kind of like noise frequency. Maybe it's like, 1%, 2%. Sure. I view it more as censorship resistant. That's what I care about the most. That's fundamentally my value add for that. Is like, if it's censorship resistant, great. Now you have Ethereum, where it's like, okay, we have more room for error. We can experiment. We can build stuff like OpenFi, etc. Hopefully Polkadot and Kosmos kind of hyper accelerates that. For me, it's like, why I'm getting a little bit disillusioned is like, okay, let's say, the reason why I bring this up is I have a lot of friends that want to enter the space, seasoned entrepreneurs. I have a lot of developer friends. They want to enter the space and they're asking for jobs too. I'm like, it's not that many jobs unless you're like your seasoned engineer. They've been working for years on it.
I have such a huge gripe with people saying there's a lot of blockchain jobs. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm just like, yes, you're right. That's exactly what you're saying. There is blockchain, but nobody wants like a junior blockchain developer. People want somebody who's maybe like 10 years of experience in building systems, and then they got interested in blockchain like 6-7 months ago, and they started putting a lot of time into it. They want someone like that. That's a senior developer. You want a senior blockchain developer.
Yeah.
You don't want just a blockchain developer.
Now I think the junior devs, right? Those are great for experimentation. Go out there and experiment and build on these different platforms.
Absolutely.
Now my the thing that I'm fearful for or disillusioned is like, how long will this last? Or can we keep on going until we find, people will give up if they don't find a place they fit in and they can make a living from. That's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like you can only have so much runway and so much room without people having a sustainable business model or ecosystem that puts food on your table. And so you look at these like DApps, we mentioned a handful, or you look at these new platforms, like I'm trying to wrap my fucking head around is like, when are we going to come out with something that there's a business model. Cool. We can scale this. We can hire people. This is what's going to make people stay here. Because even though with the Web 2.0 and the .com, we still had business models from day one.
Well, didn't people like try to fit their like square model into like the circle hole kind of thing? Like, everyone's like, oh, we pay people to use Facebook, right? But maybe you did have business models, but those business models kind of died away after you got like this surveillance capitalism going on, like selling ads, stealing your data. But that was not what people were thinking originally in 1995.
No, but like,
they were visionaries.
Look, in the tech space, you have the advertising model, you have the SaaS model, you have the data model on the back end, you have e-commerce and actual product. So you have all these different forms of business models. When I look in the blockchain space, you and I talked about earlier, could be like your capital is deployed and you don't get your interest, but you have access to X, Y, and Z. Could be, that's fascinating. But besides that, I'm finding it difficult to see new models. So
I think another model could be almost a transaction fee model. And now we have those models kind of already, but we don't have them in the context of like the way we use internets with like these microtransactions, which you kind of could get if you have like more scalable blockchains where, every time you use a transaction, it costs you 0.000. That could add up over a while. That could technically be a model. Although it exists, it would exist in a very different way today. Like every time you like something on Facebook, every time you change the state of the blockchain, very small amount. But people don't want to pay for that.
No, people don't.
Like all of that is free right now, and we're dying to get more people to use these systems.
That's why Patreon's difficult. Like getting people to pay for your content is crazy. Oh yeah, it's not going to work. And so there is an opportunity right now. I just don't have the answer.
Basic attention token. We didn't talk about that. I absolutely love it. First of all, they've like built Brave is so good.
Brave's nice, yeah.
Brave it's awesome. Like I can develop in it. Like I can develop in Chrome. Like I'm never like worried. I don't get into situations where I'm like, shit, this would be so much better if I wasn't using Brave. I don't want their token. Yeah, okay, fine. To be fair, yeah, they might be handcuffed by their
So they should have an option there where I can switch it to like ETH or a DAI or Bitcoin. Like I don't want it. I don't use it.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Like, I'd rather have it switch for DAI than, like you mentioned, if I can go lend my DAI to somebody right away, right from the browser. Okay.
That would be awesome. But yeah, to be fair, I think they might have like came around when like tokens were all the hype.
No, the original was Bitcoin for Brave.
Really?
It was that was the original plan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Then
so, no. They've been around. They did a token for the sale. Yeah. Listen, like you mentioned, the product itself is phenomenal. I still have a hard time seeing how they can convince a massive switch from like Firefox or Chrome.
So my personal like switching moment was like, I think Brave popped up and was like, hey, do you want us to copy all your passwords and everything over from Chrome? Yeah. Because we can do that with one click of a button. I hope you know that. I'm like, oh, you can do that. Interesting. Yeah. And then now I'm like on Brave. So like that was my switching moment.
That's good to know. Yeah. It's really good to know. So for me, it's like, okay, there's a sunk cost bias. Like, listen, even though like Chrome takes all your data, there's so much sunk cost bias for people in Chrome or Firefox. And eventually, maybe you can get enough people, but still, the token for me, it's like I'll give my like example, like my brother. What's my brother going to do with the Brave token? He wants to make money. He's like, okay, I got $50 at Brave. What am I doing with it? I got to go fucking exchange all this headache? Get out of here. I'm not doing that. But if one click, you can get like Bitcoin right to or DAI or something like that, they'll do that.
That's a fantastic idea. Like they should do that. Yeah. But that might crash the price of their token.
I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm not in the space for that. But like, I'm just looking from a use case perspective, you know?
That's a totally fair point. Like, absolutely agree with it.
Yeah. But going back to the problem I wanted to talk about is like the problem right now in the online space, there is a lot of censorship happening. So you look at YouTube and you look at the fact of, you know, they've had many different ad Armageddons and, you know, they're more and more gearing towards the corporate side as opposed to independent content creators.
Have you ever had any of your stuff demonetized?
Anytime.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Wow. Okay. I didn't think you were such a controversial person.
I'm not really controversial, but it's like, it's all ML. It's not like a manual person. Anytime I talk about like psychedelics or this or that.
Okay, great. You just demonetized this video.
Yeah. For me, I make fuck all from YouTube. Like peanuts, fair. Like can't even cover my fucking cell phone bill. But, I'm luckily in a position I don't need money from YouTube. But many creators depend on the revenue from YouTube or other forms of media platforms. Mm-hmm. And it's getting more and more difficult. And you're seeing right now a suppression of free speech on a lot of these platforms, whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook. Primarily YouTube, because a lot of creators, they need that ad revenue. Now, YouTube's a private company and they can do whatever they want. The only thing I don't like about YouTube, it's like, if you're going to make policy, don't nitpick. It should be a flat policy. It's like everybody. It's not like, oh, Jesse gets special treatment. Or why the fuck you get special treatment? No, it's for everybody. If this is the law, that's the law. End of story, right?
True.
Carpet it, right?
And I feel like this is such like a dilemma with like these platforms. It's like, okay, cool. You're telling people to go develop on you and create content, and you're getting people to rely on you. Like they don't work without the content creators, right?
Exactly.
But now they're kind of putting these kind of like arbitrary laws on them based on some sort of,
So for me, it's like there is this problem right now where there's a lot of amazing content creators around the world. Someone needs to fundamentally solve that problem.
Yeah.
Patreon model where people are going to donate for you, I think that's a failed model. I think the model has to be B2B. People will not pay for content. They've just been so conditioned for free. The model has to be a B2B model where I'm on this social media platform, let's call it, the new YouTube, whatever, and I'm providing content. There might be ads, there might not be ads. Who knows? It might be like sponsorship products on below it, like an e-commerce. But there has to be a new business model for content creators.
You know what I've been noticing is a lot of content creators will actually have like the inbuilt ads that YouTube can't censor. Like they'll talk about like
sponsorship.
My sports one, SeatGeeks.
Yeah.
They'll talk about SeatGeeks for like the first 20 seconds.
Yeah.
SeatGeeks pay us because I just mentioned you guys. But
pay up,
yeah.
Pay up, yeah.
But can't skip that, and they can't demonetize that. So but then again, that kind of I don't know how these people like get in contact with like SeatGeeks. I don't know how they like make these deals and negotiate these deals, but there could be companies that form around that, but there could be like with multi-sigs and certain maybe blockchain economic things, you could actually kind of get some sort of businesses and dApps working around that.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting content to those peoples and having these like maybe funds or bounties almost where people can grab them. Like, hey, mention us and have this many followers. And it's kind of this transaction that happens without a third party, like happens straight on the blockchain. And there's enough money in that it could work today with gas limits. I think the biggest thing the challenge that somebody creating that would have was onboarding people and convincing people like, oh, it's easy to use. No, it's not.
Listen, this is an opportunity for Brave. If Brave can onboard YouTubers and match what YouTubers are making and have the Brave token automatically sent as ETH or Bitcoin, Brave, if you guys are listening to this, this is an actual strategy for you. There's a massive disappointment of micro influencers on YouTube. People that have, let's say, 20, 30,000 subscribers. Diehards, they produce amazing content. And YouTube treats them as shit for the most part. This is an opportunity where if you can onboard YouTubers and show them some, and I'm not too sure whether it's like you have ads on their video and, working with your publishers on the back end, but this is an opportunity, whether it's Brave or somebody, there's a golden opportunity right now for people to grab angry content creators and bring them on their platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you kind of see like, and I don't like to get into this idea of like the actual like politics and stuff, but starting to seem like every large tech company leans left of the political field. So like even centrist people who are like, or even people who are like, and by right wing, I mean like just won't censor anything, just like it's a free open platform. Those don't seem to exist too. So and it kind of is what blockchain talks about. It's like free, open, no censorship. Because none of the big tech companies are going that direction.
Listen, I don't care about private companies censoring. I just don't care. One, I know there's people that will make a debate whether Facebook is a private company. It is.
It absolutely is. And I think that it's going, that the way that Mark Zuckerberg's going to try to appeal to them, like, oh no, come in, regulate us, is just recipe for disaster.
Oh yeah.
And then you're going to get to the point where, well, they're not a private company anymore. They're a mix of private company and the government. And that's just so much worse. That's just I just so many bad things.
They become the WeChat of North America.
Yeah, that's where they're going. They Libra, man.
Yeah, and so for me, it's like, listen, they can do what they want. I just look at laws very specific. It's like if you have your terms and services on your platform, you can't be nitpicking. You can't be cherry picking whether Jesse gets preferred treatment over me. Like if there's a rules of like you're not allowed to do ABC, that applies for everybody. You can't be like, you just can't have special treatment. Whatever they can do. You and I, before this conversation, we're talking about it's not really successful to protest and break things. You may cause a little uproar at the beginning, and some people may notice, but in the long grand scheme of things, you're not really making change. Change only happens when you create something superior to pre-existing, let's say, products or services. And so for me, this is maybe where like kind of blockchain can head or crypto can head in general. It's like, that would be exciting. If somebody comes around with an interesting product that can supersede and in every fundamental way is better than YouTube or better than Facebook.
I mean, I would probably use it and switch to it. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I would use it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And then that's kind of like true, I think, for like anything. I mean, getting into politics, like I'm so like in admiration of the people of Hong Kong. It's absolutely crazy and like so much goes out to them. But like if you start to step back and you want to get disillusioned and really think about it, yeah, maybe they win this battle, whatever. But like how many hundreds of thousands of people had to come out in like March? Realistically, in 50, 100, 200 years, as long as things don't like fully break, it's probably not going to change. Like it's not going to change. It's just going to slow down, but not going to change that creeping influence of China. Because it is China. So
if we're still around in 200 years. Yeah. I always tell people this mindfuck story. I'll give you an example of my dad. My dad is in his 80s. He was born 39, so World War I. So he went through World War I, World War II, and Yugoslavia. So 3 wars. And he comes from a small village in former Yugoslavia. And give you some context over here. It's like no TV, horse and carriage. Okay, so that's like 80 years. So let's fast forward now. We have ridiculous computers here. We have TVs that are like 8K. We have amazing technology. We're talking about self-driving cars. We're talking about AGI happening. We're talking about gene editing, all in the span of 80 years. It's actually a mind fuck when you think about it.
I think the better mindfuck the thing that gets me is like, okay, cool. But what does that mean for the next 50 years or the next 80 years?
Like think about what happened in 80 years. Where will we be in the next 80?
Yeah, I think that's the coolest mindfuck. Because it's like...
I can't even predict. Yeah. It's like, okay, we might have AGI. We're going to have some quantum computers. People are going to be fucking gene editing their stuff.
It always feels like things move so slowly, but then you like bring up those points like that and you're like, whoa, so just wait a couple, like 10 more years and keep working and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's your thing. Maybe you got to look at it that way, your blockchain stuff. It's like maybe you just can't see ahead that far.
No, obviously not. It's hard to predict. There's too many variables, too many black swan events, too many variables, too many things, uncertain things that we can't predict. Mm-hmm. But like, you got to admit though, regardless of the situation, like we're, as a general whole, human beings are living better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to be driven around by horse and carriage. Well, maybe one time romantically on a date or something, sure. But like day to day, not so much.
Yeah. And so like, I know a lot of people like to complain and look on the dark side of things, but when I view statistics and I view the quality of human lives as a whole, as an earth, we're doing exponentially better than we did 50 years ago. Exponentially better. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think, who was it that said it? What's that person from Bitcoin? Wei Dai. You can't really control what the governments will do or like big corporations. What we can do the best for human civilization to go forward is build tools and technologies to help people. It's like the law of nature. There has to be checks and balances. So you and I can sit here all day and let's say we're living in an authoritarian regime and we're not allowed to speak our mind. There's no freedom of speech, which many countries exist around the world like that. And so you and I screaming is not fundamentally going to change anything. But let's say you and I create, like, I'll give you an example in Hong Kong. You know, they create these, the wildfire app, where it's like, okay, we can't control the fact that they can shut off and turn on the internet at will, but I can control tech.
And even further than that, you have end-to-end encryption standards already. Like, honestly, just pick one off the shelf. It's so
People
easy
forget
to use.
that encryption used to be illegal in the States.
Yeah, I think Phil Zimmerman actually almost got up to the Supreme Court when he sent PGP around the world. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, PGP didn't take off in the public eye too much.
Okay, sorry. So like PGP email so much not taking off, but like the pretty good privacy, like the way that we actually encrypt messages is his.
Because of the marketing, it's like, even like today, like Proton Mail, it's like, just needs better branding.
Okay, but apps like Signal and Telegram are using like the same standards. It's not called like PG, but they're using PGP.
I love Signal,
They're still encrypting things and using the same way that they send messages across.
Yeah. Cool. Any final words? Any last thoughts?
No, man, that was like a pretty awesome like snake we took there. But like, yeah, hey, interoperability blockchains. Use our universal wallet.
There you go. If people want to get a hold of you and ask you any other questions, what's the best resource?
Hit me up on Twitter at Abramowitz Jesse. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll leave that in the show notes. All right.
Got it, yeah. Sweet.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Ameer Approved. Like always, please leave a review on iTunes. Head over to YouTube, leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.